Hello everyone and welcome to the F2 show by Inside F2, and it's an F2 show special today because we have a legend of the series with us, Formula 2 commentator, or should I say former Formula 2 commentator, Mr. Alex Jacques. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be talking to you again about Formula 2. Not sure about that former bit. Not sure how I like that sounding.
It's going to take a bit of getting used to, right? Is that going to sound weird for a little while?
I think it will do, but yeah, this is going to be a bit of fun. Go down memory lane and look back at a very happy stint doing the job.
Absolutely. Let's get into it then. Now, if producer James was going to use a song for the intro for this one, my recommendation would be "It's All About You" by McFly, because this very much is all about you. And I know you're a humble guy, so but we're going to talk about a few memories along the way. Do you mind, first of all, just talking to us about your decision to step away from Formula 2?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have done it forever. I think it was clear that I loved it, but there comes a moment where you have to consider the wider picture, and you have to consider, especially your family. I started the job I got the job when I was 25. I'm 35 now. You have to, at some point actually hang out with your wife. So just wider considerations, and 10 seasons is enough for anyone. So it seemed like a good time to draw a very happy line under it.
Yeah, and can we clarify a few things, right? You're going to laugh at this, but I've seen a few people in the comments wondering, first of all, if you're leaving the world of Formula 1, and it's absolutely not the case, you're going to be with F1 TV next season still, yeah?
Well, I hope not. Otherwise, I'm going to have to come up with an inventive way of paying my mortgage. No, I'm going to be with F1 TV going forward, and I love those. I love the roles that I have for Channel 4 and F1 TV, and that will be the main gig.
Yeah. And I did see one person in the comments saying it was a ridiculous decision to sack you. Just to clarify for everyone, it was your decision to step away, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a great run, but all good things come to an end and all of that. But thankfully managed to avoid the sack in 10 seasons.
Good stuff. Yeah, we definitely don't want any unnecessary hate towards Formula 2 or F1 TV. So for any misunderstandings there. And as we said, we're going to talk to you a little bit about your time and your journey in Formula 2. Could we start with your younger years? How did you get into Formula 1 initially? And what were your first memories of the sport growing up?
Well, the very first memory of Formula 1 was finding it by accident scanning through the channels on a Sunday afternoon, and there'd been this rather large crash in Belgium, and Murray Walker, Martin Brundle talking the viewers through what happened.
And into the wall. Who was that? This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen.
Watched the replays. I think that red flag delay was about an hour. Was really intrigued what was going on. Watched the restart. Obviously one of the greatest Grand Prix of all time, and I was hooked ever since.
And what a race, by the way. For fans who haven't seen that race, it's an unreal race. Go and check it out on F1 TV if you haven't seen it. What was the impact that listening to Murray Walker and Martin Brundle, as you've just said, what did that have on you, and how have you carried that through your career?
I love the way that Murray did it. I just thought that, I had an appreciation of him making it exciting for a kid. I appreciate it even more now because obviously you have to speak to the broadest audience, and I'm very privileged to have the microphone for the free-to-air Formula 1 audience in the UK. Obviously then it was live. Channel 4, we have feature-length highlights, and I was just amazed at how he could speak to like a petrol head who'd been watching for 30 years and then make it exciting for me as a 10-year-old. And I think that is the task, to be able to bring as many people in. And I think probably the lesson that I took from that when I started commentating is that you want to try and bring as many people in. You want to make it warm. You want to make it accessible. You want to go through the basics. So sometimes you try and smuggle it in, but as F2 viewers will know, I explain the reverse grid format every single weekend because you never know if you've got a new viewer, and it's a collective thing, and sometimes you need to refresh the rules. And his approach of making it warm, exciting. If there was a great race, let the great race speak for itself. If there was a slightly duller Grand Prix, make it work hard. That's when you earn your money. I took all of those lessons and so many lessons forward because the guy basically invented the parameters of motor racing commentary that we all exist in to this day.
Yeah, what a legend. What were your first steps into commentary then? Do you remember the first time you were in a commentary box, and how did you end up there?
Well, I'd always fancied it as an idea. I'd always wanted to try it. Started at non-league football, rising through the ranks, then BBC local radio. Especially have to thank the sports editor there, Graham Mack, for lending me equipment. That allowed me to work for other BBC local radio stations as the go-to guy when they couldn't go. So I became the sort of super sub, if you like.
Nice.
And but without that equipment being lent, very expensive radio equipment, I would never have been able to cover it. So you don't make any money at that stage of your career, but just getting reps and trying to do and cover as much as possible. And I did. And I was also working for a sports agency, so that would be, can you cover a handball event? Yeah, sure. I'll work it out on the train there, and then I'll do it. But I was writing match reports, filming press conferences, going and covering any sport for radio that I could. And that allowed me to build up a body of work that, should the right opportunity come up, I was able to put in front of producers.
And that is beautifully segued into GP2 2015. Will Buxton, I guess a friend of yours and a colleague of yours now, leaves his role as the commentator of GP2, and that leaves the door open for you to commentate on GP2. Tell us about how that opportunity came about.
Yeah, so I had been ill. I had the flu, really nasty flu, in bed watching Netflix type of flu. I'd binged all of The West Wing, run out of West Wing episodes, and then was just wasting time. This is November 2014, I think. And I saw on Will's blog that he was leaving the job. And he mentioned two producers' names in there, and I emailed those two producers and got a response. I emailed them all the work that I just described and said, I think I'd be good for this role. If you'd like to discuss it, get back to me. To my amazement, they got back to me very quickly. And I have to admit, the speed in which they got back to me, I was like, there's a chance here. And then didn't hear a lot for a while, kept persistently plugging away, emailing, phoning. They eventually, I think, just wanted me to stop contacting them. So they got me in for what essentially was I thought it was going to be an interview. What it turned into is they didn't have any questions. They were like, well, come on, if you want the job, pitch to us. And I did. And extraordinarily, purely from reading Will's blog saying that he was giving up the role, I was then able to get in with a chance to pitch to the producers. And unbelievably, they said, we're going to give you a go.
Unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. So it shows that, a few emails and, on the off chance that, you never know what could happen. Your first race weekend, the 18th and 19th of April 2015 in Bahrain, 32-lap feature race, won by Stoffel van Dorn and ART back in the day. What are your memories of that weekend? Were you nervous? How did you prepare as well? What was the preparation process?
Oh, the preparation process was... I mean, you don't know what you don't know at that stage. So I'd just not done TV before. So I'd not done a TV commentary ever before. I'd done some commentary for video highlights and various different, work through the years, but I'd never done live television in the form that you would for this feed. I was unbelievably nervous. I compare all nerves that you ever get to Bahrain 2015. I was only doing, you're doing practice, qualifying, sprint and feature. Simple. Yeah. It's simple until they put the microphone in your hand and you're at a Grand Prix weekend and your previous gig was, being on the back row for like a Rochdale game or something. And then the next thing that you're doing is you're in the back of the TV gallery at Formula One. And then suddenly they're like, well, go on then. And I just, the practice session. Oh, my word. Nothing is as nerve-wracking as that. Like I would, yeah.
Have you ever watched them back?
I am never going near those races. That was, let's just say, it was definitely not my finest work. But it was in at the deep end. But that was the joy of it. And yeah, it was intimidating. It was nerve-wracking. You know, got a lot of very talented people there that are just going about their job. Will had a wonderful connection with the audience.
Yeah.
So it wasn't easy to replace him. And it was a massive learning curve, but it turned out all right in the end.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, obviously 10 years later. Stoffel Van Dorn wins that championship that year. Any memorable moments from that season? I mean, Stoffel's season was unbelievable, wasn't it? But was there any standout moments?
He was phenomenal. He was incredible, great car and driver combination. He was the obvious champion very, very quickly. It was clear that no one was going to have the beating of him. There were some very memorable moments in that first year. You know, the contention of the virtual safety car coming out in Monaco and the lead swapping as a result had a massive, long-lasting effect. We've still got that discrepancy between the rules. I love Rio Haryanto's defensive drive in Austria is one that sticks out. I thought he was great that day at keeping a dominant champion behind. There was a massive crash for De Jong up against Gasly in Belgium, and yeah, that was a very, very big one. Those are the memories that stand out. But yeah, Stoffel was a runaway champion there, and it's just that car. How nimble that car was, slightly lighter than the ones we have now. It was just a great looking Dallara car, and even though we had a nailed on champion, we still had some phenomenal races that year.
Yeah, and a talented grid as well. Lots of talent that we still see in professional racing today. 2016, the final season of GP2, Gasly versus Giovinazzi. It was Prama's first season in the category, wasn't it? And Giovinazzi actually won more races than Gasly, but Gasly obviously won the championship. Yeah, what are your memories of 2016?
I think it was interesting there are so many memories in 2016. 2015 felt like it was 5 minutes. It was such a blur. I was still working at a newspaper at the time as well, so combining the two was not the easiest. 2016 was an opportunity, you know, you got your feet under the table, as it were. I loved how you just got so many unexpected moments, like Hockenheim when Sergei Sorokin wins having two stopped. Yeah. That never happens. Like that's absolutely, he was flying that day. It was an amazing performance. Giovinazzi basically thought he was heading to touring cars. He thought he was going to be maybe in the DTM, or he thought he was going to have a sports car future, which is, you know, he's turned out and he's won Le Mans, so he was right about that. But it was amazing seeing a driver suddenly believe that they could reach Formula One. Gasly had this weird winless streak. I don't know if you remember this, but he hadn't. It
went on forever, and it seemed like he had the worst luck in the world as well, right?
Yeah, and the other drivers were feeding off it as well. I remember Norman Nato did an amazing dive bomb move in Barcelona at turn 10, and they were all feeding off the fact that Gasly was trying to carry the Vars across the line and get that first win, and he eventually did get that breakthrough victory, and he was the best driver of that year. But there were some incredible races along the way. I mean, Giovinazzi doing the double in Baku was absolutely incredible performance. The madness of the wet dry races in Austria, that was special. And then we got the right champion eventually. And to see growing confidence and take a deserved title, that was a thrilling year. And there was a very key moment for me in my commentary career in that, when there was a drag race to the line between Raffaele Marcello and Pierre Gasly, and that was a big moment of, it was beginning to sound how I wanted it to sound, which sounds like a really daft thing, but like there's a gap between your performance and where you want your performance to be, and that was the first moment where I felt like it was coming together. Gasly had let off his fire extinguisher though, so it didn't really count. It wasn't really it wasn't a moment that was real in the end, but it was a hugely significant moment for my commentary career, and part of an amazing championship across that season.
It's really interesting you say that. So you had an idea as to what you wanted it, obviously what it wanted to sound like, but you felt like in 2015 you weren't quite there, is what I'm gathering from that. So what did you learn from 2015 which helped shape it for 2016 to get to where you wanted to be?
It was just, listening back to it, you don't listen back to absolutely everything because then you get in your own head about it, in my experience. But it was just looking at, no, I want it to sound slightly different to how I sounded. What do I need to do? Is it and then you just go through all the scenarios, try and do it differently the next time. By the time that we got to Hockenheim in 2016, I think I'd had just enough experience at that point to be able to push the direction basically push it and have control. And this is like probably nerdy commentary stuff, but yeah, that was the moment where I was like, hold on, that's exactly how I, watching it back, I was like, that's exactly how I wanted it to sound. That's exactly how I wanted it to feel. Good. Okay, we're getting somewhere with this now.
Here we go. Love it. 2017, the series reforms to Formula 2 as we know it now. A guy called Charles Leclerc steps up from GP3 and absolutely dominates the season, doesn't he? Eight poles, 7 wins, which is still the record to this day, which blows my mind a little bit. But is that still the most impressive individual Formula 2 season that we've seen, in your opinion?
Yeah. Short answer, yes. His talent at that point is the highest that I saw in Formula 2. So drivers develop at different rates, drivers have different attributes, but in terms of raw talent and speed, there were some fantastic drivers in the category that year. He was so confident. And I always go back to Belgium when he was chucked out and he was chucked to the back. And he was just buzzing that he got to race from the back and overtake everyone. I mean, nothing touched him. It was I don't know. It was just great to see a driver with that much talent have that much confidence. And some of the wins were ludicrous. We always talk about Bahrain, don't we? That one with the pit stop that he didn't need to make, and a wonderful memory for me alongside Davide Valsecchi. But yeah, I would say that he had the highest level of anyone that I commentated on as a Formula 2 driver, to be clear. Yeah.
On that Bahrain weekend, I mean, we can't not talk about it because it was absolutely superb. Obviously, the pit stop in the sprint race. There seems to be pivotal points in certain drivers' careers that you see them on a certain weekend, and you're like, wow, that is incredible. Yeah. Was that the moment for you, for Charles Leclerc? Did you see that in GP3 before? And do you have a bit of an instinct as to, you've seen all of these drivers, Formula 2, GP3. Do you have a bit of an instinct for it? You're like, yeah, that's the moment. That's the one that's lit up their career for the rest of their lives, really.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So you'll hear a lot of names, and you'll get people in the paddock be adamant that driver X is the next big thing. More often than not, the percentage is correct on that. So you've had people placed on your radar very early on, and then you're looking to see whether that is correct. So you will occasionally get a bolter who comes from nowhere, and you're like, wow, I didn't expect them to be that strong. But yeah, there's usually a moment where you're backing up a reputation you've already heard about. I mean, Charles Leclerc was an excellent champion in GP3, and then he started doing extraordinary things on the biggest stage that he's had so far. So that's obviously very, very impressive. You do get a knack of... It was an interesting thing. I remember the first conversation I ever had with Esteban Ocon, who was the GP3 champion in my first year of covering that championship. And you could tell, oh man, this guy is a competitor at heart. He's got incredibly high confidence. That is going to carry him a long way. So then when he has a season like he's never endured in his career, where he's not winning all the time, his belief in his talent, his mentality carried him through to a title where others who were maybe a little bit more boom and bust wouldn't have been able to find their way through. So you're seeing if, they're quick, you're just seeing whether they can deliver on the big stage. But then there are magical moments where probably the good drivers go from, you're not just going to be a Formula 1 driver, you're going to be a Formula 1 race winner. And something like Bahrain 2017 did that for Charles Leclerc.
Are you, in a way, gutted that we never got to see Max Verstappen in a Formula 2 car?
Yes and no. you know, you never want to play what if. And I think it was just an incredibly clever move to make sure that he learned in Formula One. It was a smart thing to do, and a brilliant negotiating ploy from Helmut Marko. And I firmly believe that is why Verstappen has been so loyal to Helmut Marko, because I think he knows from his father's career that you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the right environment, if you don't, there are so many sliding doors moments with Formula One careers that we take for granted. And I think that Max is aware that you just never know when the right time is, and to get to Formula One so quickly. Yeah. So Verstappen in Formula 2 would have been box office, but yeah, never. I was very, very happy with the seasons that we got instead.
2018, my personal favourite season in Formula 2, George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, all going for the title. Standout moments from that set. For me, Monza, Russell versus Norris. And for me, not just that moment, but your commentary was, what a moment. It was unbelievable, right?
I always think back to that. It was a really special one for a number of reasons. That entire year, people always ask for a highlight of 2018. That entire year was the highlight. It was just, you knew that you were watching a quality of field that we'd never get again. Yeah. And they were just great people as well as drivers. And that was, I spent so much time in the paddock that year, got to know them really well, like them, like all the contenders as people, as well as, Nick de Vries, he was the fourth driver that year. Okay.
Yeah.
He's now a sports car champion. He got his time in Formula One, and you could just tell that he was like, man, this is the wrong year to have to find myself. And you could see that he knew, but it was the contrast. I'd say that Lando Norris went into that season as the favorite. How he dealt with not being able to quite extract the most from the package was fascinating to see how he kept his head above water. Then George Russell and the confidence and building and that post-in-season test, and suddenly he was basically a contender everywhere he went. And then Alex Albon going from thinking that his future was going to lie in a different direction, and I used to love it. We used to do this F2 drivers parade, right? And it essentially was just a mic rehearsal test for the F1 version. Okay. Yeah. But it allowed the profile of the drivers to increase. They don't do it anymore, but they allowed the profile of the drivers to increase. And you just got nonsense on the truck, and it was just really, really funny the way that in Belgium, George Russell's winding up Alex Albon about, I'll ask him something about Helmut Marko. And by the time that we got to the end of the year, he's like, please, I've got a real opportunity here. Please don't ask me anything about Helmut Marko. So to see those three different, talents converge, and the action on track was phenomenal. But yeah, the Monza moment, we had Damon Hill in the commentary box with us, Davide Valsecchi and I, and yeah, to see those two obvious future Formula One drivers battling it out was phenomenal.
And now he's got the inside line that turns into the outside line. He's got the momentum though to take the position. Lando Norris gets past his championship rival, digging him out the moon, and he's got the inside line. Can he slow it down? No, he can't. This time he can attack. He's going to go for it. And Russell retakes the position. Absolutely vital stuff in the championship battle.
Up there with 2016, it's my favourite season because it was just so competitive. And as you say, that Artem Markalev, runner-up in 2017, returns, and it doesn't even get in the top four. I
forgot. I was going to smuggle Artem Markalev's name into some point of the final weekend, and I totally forgot to do it. So there you go, Artem Markalev for one last time.
We're going to come back and talk about Artem Markalev in a minute, because we're going to revisit, so you'll get your moment then. Before we do that, 2019, do you mind if we briefly discuss Antoine Hubert and that incredibly sad day in 2019? Your words in Abu Dhabi paying tribute to Antoine and his family were incredibly emotional for a lot of people. Just a quick word on Antoine's legacy and how that impacted you, but has impacted your commentary since that tragic day? Because Anton still lives on with all of us when we watch Formula 2, right?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, he was a special guy on the racetrack and off the racetrack. We're talking about the drivers of 2018. He was just a very complete personality for the age he was, for being in a motor racing paddock. He was a very focused guy, unbelievably polite, just a terrific bloke, just a terrific young man at the precipice of, and he was doing what we've talked about, right? He was winning races that he really shouldn't have been winning, with a team that was, finding its way into its final stages. Teams come and go, but that team was only going to win with a special talent. He was a special talent, obviously a champion the previous year in GP3. I just always pay tribute to him and his family who dealt with the most appalling circumstances with just such dignity and grace. It's obviously the worst day I've had in broadcasting. I hope that we never repeat anything like it. I have to say I found it quite tough going back to Spa until they made the changes. I'm glad they've changed the layout there, because it was just every year. It was just every year there was a big crash. So it's obviously as I said in Abu Dhabi, everyone associated with the championship and everyone associated who worked with him or knew him is going to keep his memory alive. And we're going to make sure that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said in commentary, you said, like, no one will ever forget him because we won't allow it. Yeah. And even might not be in the commentary box moving forward, but I think the media and inside F2 in particular, we will absolutely make sure that Antoine's legacy lives on. And they've obviously got the Antoine Hubert Award as well, haven't they? Which for
the top F2 rookie, which is something that means everything to the drivers because they've been told about his ability and who he was.
Exactly that. Okay, more generally then, when you look back at your Formula 2 career, what are your standout moments, I guess, from the most recent years as well? And, are there any standout moments, any races, any drivers? I mean, you've commentated on double winners. You've commentated on Ollie Behrman winning the race at Baku qualifying a pole with a bent steering rack. You've had drivers who have been free wide at points. You've had the most ridiculous moments in Formula 2, haven't you?
There's almost too much to pick from because, and this was why it was so joyous, right? It was elite motor racing on the Grand Prix weekend with some unbelievable, incomplete talents, but that was the charm of it. It was seeing a band before they were playing arenas. It was with all of the flaws and all of the rawness. You look at a Gasly season, brilliant talent, just trying to iron out the creases. Could he do it in time to win the title? He could eventually. Someone like Isaac Hadjar this year, very, very similar, I thought, in that regard. Incredibly fast. Can he find a way to improve the other attributes in time to win the title? It's what makes it so compelling. It's what I've adored about it. I'd say a standout race, there are loads, and I'll forget them. But the one that I always go back to, F2, 2017, massive rain delay. You've got some brilliant names in the championship. Luca Giotto wins the race, then doesn't win the race. But you had Leclerc, Giotto, you had De Vries. The top three was changing all the time. It was just a scramble. It was the race basically concludes in the dark. Halfway through, Davide Valsecchi takes a selfie instead of commentating. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? And the selfie is dreadful, Fraser, because I'm living on my wits, desperately trying to describe the action. I'm so coiled and tense and into it. Davide's just so chilled and relaxed.
And he's taking a selfie.
But then the selfie is him having the time of his life and me just being like this face, like, what are you doing? And I love that guy. That was just fantastic. But no, the madness of it. And I did go back and have a look at that and knowing that I was finishing up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wonder if that's as good as I remember. And you know what? It was so much fun. But I sound drained of all energy and emotion, and I'm just struggling to get coherent sentences out. And I was like, you know what? I used to love that feeling of coming off air, and I just spent everything that I had to try and cool it. And yeah, so that's the one I always think back to. Finishing Monza. Monza's my favorite racetrack in terms of the venue and the atmosphere, and finishing at Monza in the dark with Luca Ghiotto, who then gets disqualified, by the way, in classic F2 style. Yeah. And then Antonio Fuoco, who never led a lap, won the race. And he had ultras. He had supporters in front of my combox who would let flares off. They would let flares off every single time. So he'd pull up in like P7 and they'd be going mad. And it's all part of the charm. And what's lovely about, discussing those names is one of the cool things about commentating on these drivers on the way through is I was able to commentate on the Ferrari Le Mans wins as well. And, Antonio Fuoco crying his eyes out in the garage, having had that, winning that moment and claiming that incredible accolade of being a Le Mans winner for Ferrari. It's so nice to see where the journeys go. And it's so nice to commentate on big moments for brilliant drivers like that. So, we mentioned Formula One a lot, but certainly for Antonio and Fuoco and Giovinazzi, it was just, brilliant to call those moments as well.
We mentioned Artem Markelov, and I do want to come back to him because I think my personal favourite bit of commentary from you was Austria 2019, going up to turn 3, up the hill. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
And he pulls off the most outrageous triple overtake I guess it was a double overtake into the corner, an overtake on the exit.
Look at the speed he's got! This is crazy, he's going to risk it! Oh! That is absolutely incredible commitment from Artem Markelov, who's passed 1, 2, 3, and Artem Markelov! That is absolutely outrageous!
And then was it Fukuzumi on the last
corner?
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? That he managed to, and it was a P8 finish, which gave him sprint race pole the following day with the old format, right? I get the impression that you used to love Artem Markelov. Whenever there was some kind of commentary, it was always, you and Valsecki always so passionate about Markelov, who was always involved in some kind of battle or some kind of battle for the win, right?
That's kind of bang on. He was involved in the thick of it so often that you sometimes you're incredibly grateful to him for making things happen. But he won in Monaco via a virtual safety car, having been nowhere near the mix to win the race. Had an amazing battle with Ollie Rowland in Budapest one year. Went spinning out. He was just a driver that left it all on the line. But then the high point, as you say, is that I mean, that's the closest my voice has come to cracking on air ever. Is trying to. I was like, I don't really believe that he's got past 3 cars in one quarter, and then I just joy, just pure joy. Going, I wonder if this driver can overtake 4 cars on the last lap to get pole position for tomorrow and win the race tomorrow. Oh, he has done. Where else does that happen, man? Where else do you get that joy? He provided it. Yeah.
That's why we love Formula 2, and I know many people that are watching this will be watching it, be loving it as well. Champions then, 2024 champion Gabriel Bortoleto. He joins the back-to-back champions club, doesn't he? It's
not bad. Not a bad group.
What did he make of his season, and how do you think he'll do in F1 next year?
I think, let's take question 1 and question 2 in order. I thought his season was outstanding. Yeah. I thought he got up to a really quick pace level in Bahrain, and then just had an unbelievably good mentality that this was going to be. I think he plays the situations brilliantly, because if you look at your Formula 3 championship and the way he managed that expertly, and then to come to 18 drivers winning a race season with a new car, there are so many different criteria that you need to pass to be a champion in Formula 2. He was just so smart about it. There's always a moment where you have to bounce back from having made an error. To do that by going from last to first, and then when you get to first, you don't manage the gap. You want to prove defiantly to everyone that you were the fastest out there. just a great mentality, clever racecraft, didn't get himself embroiled in the wrong, knew when to take a fourth position, knew when to take a podium instead of going all in for the win. Just a very, very smart racer, great capacity behind the wheel. And then he's got to make the step up to one of the most talented Formula One grids. I was doing a show earlier today where we were going through the grid, and I almost felt nervous for the rookies because you're like, whoa, this is a pretty incredible grid of Formula One names. He's going to be able, so he's joining the team that have been at the back. He's got an amazing person across the garage to study from in Hulkenberg. That is an amazing person to have a look at their homework. And can he take that capacity, that racecraft, that intelligence that he has behind the wheel, and can he do it to answer the new questions, which is, can you make Q3 on a day where your teammate has gone out in Q1, or so on and so forth? There are so many different things when you're at the back of the grid to when you're in an upper midfield entry. And I think we'd expect Sauber to be still towards the back for next year. So he's earned his place on the grid. That's the point of Formula 2. He's a back-to-back champion. Obviously, all the back-to-back champions have been incredibly special and have gone on to be serious contenders. So if he continues that tradition, it's going to be special stuff to watch.
It is. Can't wait for that. And I think obviously as Sauber transition to Audi, we'll see how he could be at the front in a few years' time, right? So we'll see how that goes. Just wrapping up then, I want to talk about your co-commentators. You are obviously the voice of Formula 2, but you've had some great partners in crime, I guess, over the last few years, haven't you? So should we start with Jolyon Palmer and Will Buxton as well, how they played their part in your own road to Formula 1?
Well, thanks, Will, for writing the blog. That turned out to be more important than I think either of us realized. I mean, I told him that a few years into doing the job, and he was like, "What?" He's been outstanding to work with. Obviously, worked with him at F1 TV, but we did share the commentary box on one occasion when I don't know if there was a staffing crisis or the producers just got bored, but they put us together for a super group type commentary. And it was the start of 2016. And it was like, imagine two people that loud trying to commentate on the same pitches. But that was a lot of fun. I owe Jolyon a lot for 2015, where I was such a stress head that year. You needed someone who was cool and laid back, and he was very laid back. He was very chilled. He would roll up in his Lotus team kit about a minute before we went on air. Just so good at articulating the basics and the complexity of motor racing in the same way, and a master of showing he's working and explaining why he's taken a position for, say, an incident or something like that. And then Will can tell you off the top of his head everything about Formula One in 1950. Just a complete enthusiast who happened to end up holding a microphone. And then obviously, and I do think the co-commentators is where I got luckiest by far, because I've worked with so many through the years. But the people that I've got to, you're extracting information out of the people who've been there and done that. And to have obviously genuine curiosity in motor racing, and to be able to go, oh, that's interesting, I'll just ask them. I mean, we're live on TV, but I'm going to get an answer to a question that I would have wanted to know anyway. That has been really joyful, like a really fun experience to get some answers out of people who've been there and done it.
One of those was Mr. Davide Valsecchi. That is just the most unbelievable combination. You and Valsecchi just, screaming at the top of your voices. You can tell the passion that you guys have for motor racing. Enjoy those years.
Loved it. I mean, how could you not? Davide sounds how motor racing should feel. It's as simple as that. We had the glorious nonsense of him always having to get changed mid broadcast, because when he'd do the podium interviews, he'd be wearing his Sky Italy uniform, and then he'd have to get changed into like neutral clothing. I mean, what a stupid TV thing that is. But anyway, so he'd be putting a blazer on, or he'd be putting some a smarter shirt on, and then sometimes I'd be so into it, I'd throw to him, and he'd be like miles away, and then that's why you'd hear so many off mic moments where you'd suddenly hear wow, oh, like and it was incredible. No, he was a massive part of me making that broadcast slightly more dynamic, slightly more exciting. But that Italian passion for motor racing when it's close and exciting, and I loved it. I genuinely loved what I've been so lucky to love working with the people I've been put alongside. Because I'm telling you, it's not always the case in broadcasting. I've been blessed in that department. And the Valsecchi years were just hilarious and exciting, and just an amazing guy to make sports TV with.
Yeah, exciting for all of us, definitely. And then more recently, obviously, Alex Brundle. You two seem to have a really good chemistry and like a great balance between, I guess, knowledge, skill, and a bit of humour in there as well. It just works, doesn't it?
He is and this is daft. We've spent so many years working together, like, taking the mickey out of each other on air, and like, me saying to him, like, oh, tell us another story about a crane, or, filling the red flag delays or the rain postponements and all of that, and just talking absolute nonsense. I mean, we're arguing about local papers in Belgium earlier this year. So like loads and loads of fun. But he was very nice to me at the end of the broadcast in Abu Dhabi. And I have to say, it's the only time I worked very, very hard on not getting emotional all the way through. And I was like, oh, man, like even Brundle's going to be nice to me now. That this is a significant moment when Brundle's being nice. So, he is a brilliant sports broadcaster who also happens to be hilarious. And he is just great at breaking down things that you see and things that you can't see. He is an enthusiast for historic stuff. He is an enthusiast for stuff that, the prototype technology. He's also driven in sideways rain in the middle of the night in Le Mans. He's been on the podium there 2 times, which I think I might have mentioned 1 or 2 times on there.
Just a few.
But he is, I mean, if you look at those names, Fraser, that I've got to work with, like that is crazy that I've been able to work with people that good at their job, and back to back to back. We always manage to find someone brilliant on the microphone, of which he is a brilliant broadcaster. I know Alex is going to be doing it for many, many years. The one thing I would say is I've resolved to him, and I'll resolve to everyone watching this, we're going to commentate together again, because it was just way too much fun for that to be it. I'm very, very lucky. And as you could hear on air, like, we get on like a house on fire, and I've been very, very lucky to work with Alex Brundle.
And we're very, very lucky to have listened to it over the last few years. So did you hear the Formula 2 drivers talking about you in the little video that Formula 2 made? And you did hear it. I guess to some of those drivers, you are the voice of Formula 2 to a lot of people, but they literally, they won't have heard Formula 2 without your voice. I mean, is it, I guess, nice to have a legacy with some of those drivers who are still coming through the ranks?
It is odd that the drivers have said, when I was doing karting, I was listening to you do Formula 2. And I'm like, how old am I? Like, this is getting ridiculous. No, it's really, really nice. And the one thing is that you realize that when the drivers review the races, it's a world feed, right? So your commentary's on there. So everything that you've ever said about them, good, bad. And I've always been a glass half full commentator. I've always been aware that, like, I've never put my neck on the line, right? It's the driver who's going to tell you who's up, who's down, who got it right, who got it wrong. I was always going to be a glass half full broadcaster. I'd made that decision way before I got the job in 2015. But it's nice that, that message was lovely, that they all recorded. It's nice that they spent the time to do it. But I got to say, considering you don't know how these young athletes are going to be, when you work with them. And I'd worked in football beforehand, and the people that have succeeded in Formula 2 are, to a person, phenomenal to work with. And there's a reason why they've got a group of people around them, and that they've managed to get promoted to Formula One, or they've managed to go on and win, Le Mans, or they've managed to go on and succeed in Formula E. The reason that the people get to the front is you've got to be a good personality as well as a great driver. And I can only thank the drivers for the way that they've been with me throughout my entire time, because it's not a given, and it's not the same in every other sport.
You're a top guy, Alex. Shall we finish with some quick fire? You up for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. How would you describe your commentary style?
Fairly excited.
I love that. Nice. I'd agree with that as well. If you go back in time, what advice would you give to yourself?
Stop stressing out through the entirety of 2015. It turns out okay in the end.
It's going to be okay. Love it. Who are the drivers were you most... I mean, you actually kind of already answered this already early on in the podcast, but who was you most excited about at the time in Formula 2?
I always think, well, given that I've given the answers on that, I always think Stoffel Van Dorn was hard done by. I would have liked to have seen him go longer in Formula One. I thought Charles Leclerc was thrilling. The George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon year was just outstanding and brilliant as well. And I've enjoyed all of them. Like the Mick Schumacher, Callum Ilott year, that was brilliant as well. The way that Oscar Piastri just wiped the floor with everyone and said, "See you later, back to back. I'm off to have a chat about which team I'm going to drive for." Just absolutely brilliant. And we don't mention him as much because of the almost ruthless way that he took that championship. But I mean, they've all been exciting. They're all the drivers trying to forge their way through, anyone at the front in contention. And I'm this is a rubbish quick fire. I've totally failed this. But I always want to say, I feel that Frederic Vesti, Felipe Dragovic, Teo Pourchaire, the way that they have conducted themselves, having been just plain unlucky with timing, they absolutely deserve their chance on the grid.
You have read my mind again, because my next question was, who's the most talented Formula 2 driver not to make it to Formula 1? So would you say it's one of those names?
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure which one, but it's one of those two.
Pourchaire for me, it was unbelievable. The only driver in GP3 to take it to the Premers, steps into Formula 2 and sticks it on pole in Monaco. Youngest pole sitter, youngest winner. Timing.
It would be interesting to see. Like, someone eventually is going to stick him in a factory car, and someone's going to win races. So I don't know why everyone's so desperate to avoid using him. Because why don't you want to win? He's a winner. This is turning into an advert for Teo Pourchaire, but give the guy a chance. For goodness sake. Like, why don't you like large trophies?
I'm with you on that. This is a rubbish quickfire. You are right. Who wins the 2025 Formula 2 Championship?
Oh, that's impossible.
You're not a commentator now, Alex. You can say you're still a commentator. You're not the Formula 2 commentator.
I think Mini's got a great chance.
Oh, that's a rogue shot. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mini or Lindblad? Yeah, that's where I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. And there we are.
Don't cop out. Okay, and last one. What words of advice would you give to an Alex Jacques of the future who's looking to get into commentary, journalism, media? What words of advice would you have for that person?
I would say that the most important thing by far is to believe that you're going to make it to that paddock. In the good days, in the bad days, when people are being positive about you, when your work is being well reviewed, in the bad days where no one's responding to emails or phone calls, like, you've got to believe that you'll get there. No matter what background you're from, no matter what you want to do in that paddock, there is a place for you there and you can get there. I would say that get as much experience as possible with the lowest number of people watching, because if you get parachuted into a job that you're not quite ready for, it might turn into a stressful year. No, there's a great opportunity with esports. There's lots of leagues out there. Remember that if you've got great commentary there, you've got to get a bit of ground game as well, which means that you're going to have to go to real life events as well. But there's so much opportunity to do it with esports. Local radio, hospital radio. There are great people out there who will give you an opportunity, and believe in yourself, and you have no idea where it can take you.
Love that. Alex, we've had so many tributes from the fans, from friends of yours as well. So we haven't got time, literally don't have time to read them all out to you. But I am going to read one out to you because I think this one particularly stood out to me. It's from FIA Formula 2 Goated on X. He said, I want to thank you for your commentary on Formula 2 over these years. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to you. One day, if the new commentator is unable to do F2 for a round, then please make an iconic comeback for a round. A little cameo comeback. Would you like the sound of that?
I think everyone's heard enough from me for the moment. So let's be great. I tell you what, I'm grateful for what I've had the chance to do. I am. Yeah. And that's just a lovely message. And yeah, so many people sent nice messages. I'm kind of blown away by, the DMs, the way that people, you do sometimes forget that, it used to mean a lot to me when I watched. That's why I became a commentator. But so many people have been really, really nice. So I'm very grateful for that.
Well, listen, I'm going to speak on behalf of the Formula 2 fan base when I say thank you for the memories. Thank you for being the sound of Formula 2 through the ups and downs over the years. And you are a Formula 2 legend. So we wish you all the very best of luck for the future. And your Formula 2 commentary will absolutely live on in our ears over the years. I didn't actually mean for that to rhyme, but it does. That is all we got time for on the podcast. Before we do that, quick plug. If I may. We've been shortlisted for an award. It's the Best Motorsport Podcast Award at the Sports Podcast Awards. We're up against some amazing podcasts like Sky Sports F1 Podcast, BBC Checkered Flag, Fast and the Curious. So it's a bit of a long shot, but it's obviously very humbling.
Come on, let's get an upset going here, people.
Absolutely. What do they need to do, Alex? What do they need to do?
Is there a place where you can vote?
Absolutely, there is.
Thank goodness.
We're going to put the link in the comments below. And if you do have a couple of minutes, we'd be really grateful if you could vote for us. It would mean an awful lot. We've hit 200,000 subscribers this year, which is an absolute, it blows my tiny little brain, to be honest with you, that we've got 200,000 people subscribed to this channel. But they clearly love Formula 2 as much as me and you, Alex. So, we'll pop the link in the description below, in the comments below, and we'd be really grateful if anyone could go and vote. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time. Alex, little farewell wave to the Formula 2 fans. We're going to miss them.